Epic fury blowing the bejesus out of Iran's missile capabilities as President Trump blew the minds of reporters today during his Oval Office meeting with Japan's prime minister. He was explaining why the U.S. had to surprise Iran with an attack.
We went in very hard, and we didn't tell anybody about it because we wanted surprise. Who knows better about surprise than Japan? Okay? Why didn't you tell me about Pearl Harbor? Okay? Right?
Her face on that one is priceless. Despite Trump's surprise attack, the meeting was light and cordial because just moments before it started, Japan and 6 other allies agreed to his demands to secure the Strait of Hormuz. Reporters also asking Trump about Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent saying members of Iran's leaders are defecting. Watch.
Well, we have a man named the Treasury Secretary here, so maybe he wants to discuss it. Does anybody know? Do you know who he is? Central Casting.
We are seeing the defections at all levels as they're starting to sense what's going on with the regime.
You have a lot of military defections in Iran. I don't blame them.
I talked to Prime Minister Netanyahu about attacking the oil and gas fields.
Yeah, I did. I told him don't do that, and he won't do that.
Meanwhile, the media is trying to drive a wedge between Trump and his MAGA base over Iran, but CNN's overly eager data nerd put an end to that debate.
MAGA GOP view of Trump. Approve 100%. 100%. If you are a member of MAGA and the GOP, you approve of Donald John Trump. 0% say that they disapprove. You don't have to be a mathematical genius to know you can't go higher than 100%. He is the 1972 Miami Dolphins.
He is the 1972 Miami Dolphins, Dana. You were just saying that before the show started.
I mean, it's pretty obvious. If you know sports, Adam, it's obvious.
What did you make of, actually, that was the first time I saw the clip of Donald Trump mentioning Pearl Harbor, which is, it kind of shows you that he doesn't have much reverence. Like, he treats a prime minister the way he would treat a reporter or...
Everybody's the same.
Everybody's the same. So he just brings up Pearl Harbor because she's there.
It's funny. So Giorgia Meloni in Italy, she's got a great face for reactions.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever see, like, there's all these memes about her. Mm-hmm. The Prime Minister of Japan, a little bit more subtle. In a way, I felt like she kind of wanted to laugh, but she, like, 10,000 thoughts went through her mind at the same time, where it's sort of like, that's funny. I shouldn't laugh. Everybody's watching me. I don't know what to do. But I also think she's super smart, and she knew that she wasn't going to go into her first meeting with the president at the Oval Office without something to give.
Yeah.
And they're working on it. And I also think that the White House, in some ways, and I think maybe behind the scenes, they were a little bit more understanding that all of these leaders also have constituents.
Yeah.
And they have to figure out a way to talk to people, their own citizens, about why they would do this, how it would work, et cetera. So I think like that got underway today. I would mention one other thing. The media coverage has been what it is, right? If you're looking at media coverage as you and I understand it, everybody at this table, right? We're here, we're doing a show. We grew up, we were just talking about the McLaughlin group. We know that there's social media. I think that the scales have tipped so much when it comes to mainstream media versus how people are typically getting their news now. They're almost all on social media. Sometimes that can be great, but for a lot of it, it's really bad. And that's not just here in America. That is in those countries too. Mm-hmm. And so the complaints about the media, they land where they land, they're fine. But I think that the bigger ball game right now is the communications writ large around the world, especially attacking a lot of the disinformation.
That's a great point, Dana.
Thank you.
You should put that in your great point journal.
Yep.
So, Brian, good to see you. Lying
I have a great point journal. It's empty.
Yes.
I'm hoping to fill it up today.
But I have a question for you. The approval rating, 100% among MAGA Trumpers. Isn't that kind of what Dana's saying in a way, is that it's a sharp contrast, reality versus social media, where the loudest voices are the critics, but the numbers don't back up their intensity. So you have 4 bold-faced names saying that MAGA is running away, but the numbers say no, they're not.
I know, because you have high-profile people looking to get booked on other networks or with podcasts who are saying this war is not Donald Trump. He lied to us. He betrayed us. And then you look at the polls, it's between 86, and I've never seen this, Harold. We just talked about 100% polls. So you have an NBC poll with CNN's reporting, and still people are saying, I don't believe it. Okay, let's say it's 85%. Mm-hmm. So he's pretty secure in what he's doing. You know why? Greg, back to your original point and Dana's, is that if you've been around and reading a paper since 1979, now we get it online, now we get it, you've seen it, Iran be a problem. Donald Trump is not attacking Aruba or the Bahamas. He's attacking a belligerent nemesis of this country that spend the majority of their time attacking us. Now, think about what's happened over the last few days. NATO is all of a sudden consolidating and saying, we're on board. We have Japan saying, how can I help? We have the Arab nations saying, cripple them, finish the job. And on top of that, we now have a situation where we are killing the most high-profile leaders of a country. And now, by all reports, Scott Bessent aside, they are running for the hills, afraid to go outside. So don't tell me you have second and third degrees on the depth chart. You lost your A team, you lost your B team, your C team's running for their lives, and you're hearing about massive defections. Look out for tomorrow. Tomorrow is the Persian New Year. Normally they go out and celebrate like every other country. They were told not to. I sense they're going to. And if the siege doesn't come out in the streets and repress that, I think the go sign is going to be take back your country. Just the beginning. It's a race between the energy, the eradication of the energy worldwide and people getting nervous, as opposed to a brilliant military strategy being implemented with the latest, most impressive weapons in the world, helped by AI.
Excellent. Good job there, Brian.
Wow.
You really mean that?
No.
I don't think so.
Rosanna,
That's the same, Greg.
what are your thoughts in general? This is the first time you've been on the 5 since this happened.
know.
So what's your take on the progress so far?
This is what I felt today. Today was a day of reassurance. We've heard Secretary Hegseth say we're winning, but, there are some of us saying, if we're winning so much, why has Iran still got a lot of missiles and hitting some very important targets? But today we saw the Japanese prime minister. She said to the president, if anybody could bring peace to the world, it's you, Donald. She, on a first-name basis. That was good. Then we also heard from Benjamin Netanyahu, who also reassured the world that this is going to be short, that Iran does not have what it needs to make a nuclear bomb. That's what we're afraid of. And at the same time, listen, we're all dealing with the common sense of day-to-day living, right? Oil prices, going to get your car gassed up, going to the grocery store, prices there. And we keep hearing it's going to be short-lived, the prices are going to come down. And I think if that really happens very soon, I think Americans will feel like this was worth it. But I think right now, I think we're worried. I mean, those of us who live in New York, we remember 9/11. We still have the wounds. So we don't want to see it escalate.
Harold, Rosanna makes a good point about there is kind of like no denominator when we're talking about the data. It's like when they say we've confiscated 10,000 pounds of fentanyl. Well, how much is there out there? So every day we keep hearing about all of these bombings and we're taking these out, but we don't know what out of how many, which is why when you hear, well, the Iran still bombing stuff, it like confuses us. It's like, but how are they still doing this? Couldn't they be a little bit better in telling us like what the progress is?
So good to be with you and good to be with you.
That's not an answer to my question,
You put your finger on, I think, one of the fundamental challenges. I think when people hear Democrats or Republicans raise questions about the strategy, you shouldn't conflate or confuse that with anyone being for the brutality and terror that this regime and their ability to inflict these kinds of things on people. We all want that done. The question is, what is the strategy to do it? I don't buy into it. I'll know it in my bones. I'll know it. It's in my gut. I'll know that's not a winning.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the context.
Let me just finish. I'm getting to your kind. I think it's important.
Well, this show's only an hour.
So the challenge we have is that Russia is providing them information, and Russia is probably providing them weapons. So when you ask for a metric, the real metric is what do they have? The reason we're asking the Ukrainians to be helpful to us is because they have shown an ability to combat and counter a lot of this Russian technology and Russian drone technology.
It's Iran technology they gave to Russia.
Right, but they're giving them more weapons is the only point I'm saying. You all raised the metric point. We can't fully get it because if the Russians continue to help them, it's a huge problem. Now, it was encouraging to me today to see those the NATO nations and Japan say, we want to be helpful. I think what we have to do is figure out not the president's strategy, and to give the president the benefit of the doubt. I know he knows what happens when you win and what a win looks like, but you have to convey that to our allies. If indeed we want to eliminate their ability to launch ballistic missiles and arrest their ability to develop a nuclear weapon, we could probably gain an incredible array of support from nations around the world to help us. And then secondarily, how do we police the Strait of Hormuz? We shouldn't kid ourselves. The reason this is as big an issue as it is because gas prices are up. It's because food prices are up. Now, there's no poll ever where I can't get 100% of people in my house to eat ice cream. There's no way 100% of anybody.
But I didn't do it.
I know,
I'm
but
just saying it's on CNN about NBC.
But if it was any other poll about Democrats, you doubt it. So this poll here is
let's
probably
say it's 90.
Okay, say it's 98. My only point is this: if gas prices rise $2 starting tomorrow, we'll poll them again and see what people think. We have to be mindful of what Rosanna talked about and what we're talking about. And what I think is not assuring to people is what the president is saying in terms of a strategy. I thought the president was out of line today, saying what he said to the Japanese prime minister.
About Pearl Harbor?
Pearl Harbor. That's not a. Here we are
You
trying.
think he surprised her with it?
But
I think he shocked her. Let me. I'll let you finish.
I know, but Tony Blair was kidding around about burning the White House down when they were touring around with Bill Clinton.
He was wrong too. So President Trump, in the middle of a war, President Clinton was in the middle of a war when he said that we're in the middle of a war. He should not. These jokes and these kinds of things. She has to go back home. She might have found it funny, but I wonder if the Japanese people found it funny. I don't think they did.
it.
Okay, well, we've done some. All I'm saying is if that's the case, then he shouldn't have had her in the White House. If we're going to hold that grievance, look, I get it, and no one likes my points. My only point is, if I had your argument, I'd be doing the same thing you're doing to me, kind of, well, it's towel slapping here. My only point is this. If we want a strategy that's going to attract the world, because we have to ensure that Iran can never, hold on, Brian, never inflict the kind of terror and brutality that they have over the last 47 years, we need a better strategy. I'll end on a point of agreement.
You don't know the strategy.
Neither do you.
No, that's true. But I have some kind of idea that he's done a really good job.
I think the reason
Dana made a good point about Dana made a very good point about it's interesting to me to hear Mr. Carr take on broadcasters and we take on the media a lot. The real danger in our Wall Street Journal, our in-house newspaper, editorialized about this today, everybody should read it, is social media and TikTok. Yeah. That's where the lies and the distortions and frankly, the outrageous, you and I agree on this, outrageous things that have been said.
Out of control.
But
Mr. Carr, focus on that too.
No, I'm not going to explode. I was like, could I just have like a little second?
Only if you talk like that.
Okay. Now I'm like, dang, what was I going to say? It was such a good point. On the 100% thing, of course, polls, that sounds kind of crazy, but even if it's 98%, I don't think people are saying, we totally understand the strategy and we're totally cool with it and everything's fine and we're not worried about anything. I think what they're saying is we trust him.
Yes.
And therefore we are just
which is understandable.
I totally understand the strategy and the fact that there are so many missiles backs up the reason we had to go in. You have a country building a nuclear weapon who was denying it. Now they said 60% enrichment, who was going to surround themselves with an umbrella of short and mid-range and long-range missiles, building a multi-stage rocket that would have hit Europe by 2030. And they're defending themselves so they could have a nuclear weapon like North Korea did, gradually then hoping the world would accept it and then eventually holding it hostage. They're a death cult masquerading as a government, and we're seeing it right now.
I'm in agreement with you. I just want a strategy to counter and stop it. If we don't have a strategy.
Cut them off.
Cut them off. All right.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.